Swami, you can unmute and start. Please unmute yourself.
Namaste. Good evening. We wish to discuss disorder in daily life, especially with regard to the question whether even our philosophical knowledge makes us blind to the disorder that exists in life. Whether the topic is worded as order in daily life or disorder in daily life, what we are talking about is one and the same thing. We wish we had order, but the fact is there is so much disorder. Disorder means contradictions. Disorder means imbalance. Disorder means lack of right proportions. Disorder means interpersonal and intrapersonal conflict. As we appreciate the teachings more and more and more deeply, we realize how true it is to say that we are living in conflict. We are asked not to live in conflict. Why do we dissipate our energy by living in conflict every day? Because when there is conflict, there is so much of wastage of our precious energy. It was Oscar Wilde who made a witty statement in the context of facing temptations. The best way to meet with temptations, he said, is to immediately yield to them. When temptations arise, Oscar Wilde said, best way to handle them is immediately yield to them. You feel like eating a rasgulla, go to the nearest Bengali shop and grab half a kg of rasgulla and on the way home finish half of it. So that statement by Oscar Wilde, though not practical, is much appreciated for a certain intrinsic truth in it. What is that intrinsic truth in his statement? A whole lot of people, especially those who are conditioned by various religions, have a big problem with temptations. Even it's about having an extra cup of tea in the day. Even if it is about spending a little more money or spending a little less money on some occasion. These religious people, the so-called religious people, run into a conflict. Should I or should I not? And oscillating between maybe I should buy it and maybe I should not buy it. Maybe I should take another cup of tea today, though I have had one at breakfast. One more at 11 a.m. is not bad. And at 11 a.m., I'll go for a larger cup of tea. That's the temptation. Ordinarily, a man would either go for it or say no, matter ends there. But our religious conditionings, which ask us exercise self-control. Don't be a slave to your senses. Live a disciplined life. Be like so and so. Learn from the example of that lady, this man, and so on. So much is pumped into us. And we, if we are lecturers on philosophy, on religion, on spirituality, on ethics, on value systems, and whatnot, we in turn pump those ideas into our audiences. We use bombastic language. Be the master of your mind. Bring your senses under your control. We bring all our oratorical skills, our linguistic capabilities, idioms, phrases, parables, stories, examples, and sprinkling of some jokes also. And with all that, our audience gets spellbound and they imagine that the speaker has tremendous order in his daily life, but 10 times, alas, they are wrong. Hardly anybody in this world lives with order in daily life. For all these ideals, all these ideas of how we ought to be, how we should be, how a husband should be, how a wife should be, how a son should be, how a daughter should be, how a guru should be, how a disciple should be. It's so difficult to escape these ideas of how we should be. I never read it, but I believe there's a book called The Tyranny of Shoulds. The Tyranny of Shoulds. Ideas of how we ought to be, how we should be, become tyrants. They become tyrannical, so to say. That is where, rather than arriving at order, our life goes for a tailspin and gets into more disorder. Once the so-called or a so-called student of spirituality confessed before me. She said to me, "Sir, I have been attending your spiritual classes for 2 or 3 years now. I thoroughly enjoy your lectures, sir. But I must tell you, in rest of my day's life, I used to be happier before." That was like a slap on my cheek. I said, "What? On one hand, you say you enjoy my lectures. On the other, you say you were happier before." She said, Let me explain, sir. When you talk, I get rosy dreams of how my life is very soon going to be perfect. I'll be like an illumined person walking on the earth. But back home, dealing with my husband who never understands me, and dealing with my 2 children who, as they grow up, are becoming harder than ever before to deal with, I get into more stress. In olden days, I was happier in the sense I didn't have a bunch of ideas how I should be. I just did whatever seemed to be right. But now, ideas of what I heard in your lectures, as though your lectures are not enough, you prescribe, you recommend so many books. I read those books also. Those books gave another bunch of ideas. And in the process, I am in so much of conflict. Now, I may be a little humorous, bear with me. There is some truth in what I am saying, I know. And there is some other side which needs to be examined sympathetically. I'm trying to clarify, my dear friends, what I mean by order in daily life. or the lack of order may be called disorder in daily life. In the second line of this evening's title says, does our philosophical knowledge make us blind? I must quickly explain what that phrase or that sentence mean. As we learn more philosophy, many a time we not only read philosophy, but also we read with much interest the lives of philosophers, the lives of the so-called saints, about whom Krishnaji made, of course, sweeping statements. I do not fully agree with him, but he has the right to say how he looks at things. He said most of the so-called saints were all neurotics. He said. So, we'll not go into that. I know why he said it and what context he would have said it. Therefore, I find something to learn from such statements of Sri J. Krishnamurti. When he begins a lecture at some place, all gurus exploit humanity and some such statement. You wonder, what is he saying? There have been some illustrious gurus in our tradition, but he says all gurus exploit. Or somewhere else there was a statement. I remember in my early years in Rajghat, 2004 or 5, I read a sentence and I ran to Rajesh Dalal. Rajesh Dalal was always so wonderful to discuss Krishnamurti. I went to him and showed him that book. Rajesh ji, why is Krishnaji saying here in that particular lecture, which was printed as a chapter in a book? The first sentence is, faith necessarily makes us violent. So he has, in that first sentence of the whole lecture, he has vehemently questioned the place of faith. Out in the traditions, faith is regarded as the backbone of your spiritual growth. So it's not easy for most people to reconcile these statements. We respect a lady saint like Anandamayi Ma, whom Sri Krishnamurti also respected. Was it not in Rajghat only? I wasn't there, of course, much before I came to Rajghat. I guess it was in Rajghat that Ma Anandamayi of Bengal, who later, of course, lived and walked around India after the independence. Otherwise, originally she was from what today is Bangladesh. So Anandamayi Ma met Jiddu Krishnamurti in Rajghat on the banks of Ganga. I guess in the backyard of Vasanta College, I am told. And holding Krishnamurti's hand like a elder sister, like a Didi, like a Akka, she said to Krishnaji very lovingly, why do you deny gurus? And Krishnaji just kept quiet. This is what I am told. So we respect someone like Anandamayi Ma, who spoke of faith, who spoke of remembering God and all those things. We respect Krishnaji also immensely, who makes such a statement. Faith necessarily breeds violence. That was the statement I read, and then, of course, Rajeshji and I had a long discussion, and I am grateful to him for so much light he threw upon the vision of Krishnaji. All right. What is disorder? Let me come straight to that now. It's good to study some philosophy, but there arises disorder when we get more and more caught up in certain concepts of how we should be and the ideas of how we should be, how we should be, and also ideas of how he should be, how she should be. A husband looks at his wife who is asleep and thinks in his own mind. An ideal wife should be da 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 da. But this woman, deep asleep now, is so far from how she should be. Maybe next night it is the other way around. He is fast asleep and the wife has got up for some reason. She looks at him and taking her hand to her head, might be saying the same. I have read a lot about how husband should be, but this man is nowhere near that. See, how one should be, husband or wife, somebody else or we ourselves, and another idea, not truth, not fact, another idea of how we actually are. When the husband looks at this woman fast asleep and is feeling certain remorse, certain regret, certain sorrow, why I married her in the first place, and so on. Wait a minute. There is a problem, there is a clash of two ideas, not two facts. One idea of what kind of person she is, another idea of what kind of person she should have been. Both are ideas. Both are conditioned processes in our psychology. When we like some religion and we are against some other religion, we have a special attachment to one religious philosophy, and we have a phobia. It's called phobia. Hindu phobia, Islamophobia, I guess Christian phobia. Phobia means the moment you see a cross, you feel afraid. My God, what are these people in the church up to? Phobia. They may be very good people there, but you have a phobia. Moment you see some people clad in orange robes, you become a little bit nervous. Oh my God, I came for peace of mind. And here these saffron clad people are all standing with strange marks on their head, holding some staff. You don't know. You have an idea, you have a concept, your conditioned mind labels Christian padris, Hindu sannyasis, or Islamic mullahs, Buddhist monks, etc. You label some of them as they ought to be good, and some others, your mind says they ought to be wicked. So there is an idea about how others are, there's an idea about how we are, and there is another idea how we should be. Now, without going long on all these, I guess we must discuss this, how this kind of conflict between two concepts, two ideas, two imaginations, this conflict leads to so much of disorder. We'll discuss it in the second part, but I would say that as we reflect on all this, we see there is a big blunder in us. We are committing a blunder. We have allowed ideas to hijack us, and we are paying a price for it. Without getting hijacked by either the ideas which are hasty conclusions of how we are, or ideas of which again are hasty conclusions about how we should be. Don't get hijacked by all these thoughts. We pay attention to what is. Let's say I ate an extra rasgulla, or I took a second cup of tea at 11 o'clock. Okay, ideas rise whether I should have taken or not taken. Oscar Wilde, maybe I didn't complete that time. He says, don't suffer in this conflict. If you feel like taking one more cup of tea, just take it and be done with it. Move on. That was the truth in his statement. The best way to handle temptations is to immediately yield to them. But it should not lead to some licentiousness. That's the other side of the story. Many times, some wise statements are not grasped in the right way, and people, after hearing some very wise statements, go berserk. They behave in some wanton ways. That's another story. So, being with what is, with a certain silence inside us. A mind pulled down by concepts is not silent. That's where philosophical knowledge was mentioned in the topic this evening. In philosophical knowledge, there is a high likelihood. We don't blame philosophical knowledge per se, but philosophical knowledge, going by high likelihood, conditions us to have that noise operate in the background of our mind. Why is just philosophical knowledge? Knowledge of history, knowledge of either the ancient past or even the recent past. I read yesterday that some Rohingyas in Myanmar, Myanmar is what was called Burma before, Myanmar or Myanmar they call it. So they were chased away by the Buddhists in Myanmar. And in India, certain people are welcoming them sympathetically, hosting them also, giving them Aadhaar card and documents, etc. Some others are very sore with these Rohingyas from Burma coming everywhere in the country. They are raising alarm that this will lead to a lot of difficulties and so on. So I just read a small piece. I was watching my own mind. In that piece, it was said that there is a certain Rohingya organization in Burma, and they had murdered a number of Hindus in a very barbaric way, being very intolerant of certain Hindus in some small town in Burma, Myanmar. They had shot them dead, butchered them, and so on. Later on, they were the target of Buddhist majority. They ran. See, recent past, this must have been 4 or 5 years ago. Now, many of them have run away to India. They are all over India, south, west, east, north, and so on. So, see, knowledge. If we have read a certain article about how some members of their community did some violent acts against Hindus, and if we are Hindus, suddenly that knowledge, that memory, what you read, etc., begins to influence you. Whereas some other knowledge, how all they are asking for is basic amenities. It's a humanitarian scenario. They are asking for food and drink and a little roof over their head. They were persecuted in their country. Many of their family members died at the hands of the Buddhist fanatics, etc. Then that knowledge influences you in another way. So philosophical knowledge, knowledge of history, knowledge of geography, knowledge of people, knowledge of individuals, knowledge of heroes as well as knowledge of villains. You know about Hitler certain things, and you know about Abraham Lincoln or Nelson Mandela or some people who received Nobel Prize for Peace and so on. You have knowledge. There is this question: does knowledge make us blind? Does knowledge influence us so much that we strongly take sides? We become biased. We even turn a blind eye to certain human response. Does knowledge come in the way of our behaving in a sane manner? Do we go to the border of insanity because of knowledge? You see, somebody in your family goes abroad, gets a degree from Harvard, then we say, my God, my grandson graduated from Harvard University School of Divinity. That's what they call religious studies, School of Divinity. That is religions. Buddhism and Hinduism and Christianity and Islam and uh, Zen Buddhism, Judaism, all are studied there. Sometimes the Department of Religious Studies is called in America School of Divinity, as in Harvard. So my grandson is a graduate from School of Divinity. There's so much knowledge, but will that knowledge really help him? Or despite his knowledge of so many books, so much of philosophy, will he act more selfishly than ever before? Will he use all that degree, all that knowledge, all that information to feather his own nest, to occupy positions of wealth and power, and personally, inwardly lead a life of personal, selfish safety and security? This question arises. So, what's the relation between knowledge and being truly human? Can we say those with more knowledge are more human? Equally, can we say those who never went to school are more human? Either statement is questionable. Can we say knowledge has no relation to being truly human? Then what under the sun will make us truly human? What under the sun will make us not blind, but sensitive, aware, alert, open to various possibilities, and respond with certain well informed and unbiased ways. Otherwise, we may have knowledge, we may occupy positions, we may be impressive in certain ways through various talents, but either known to public or unknown to many, our personal life might be full of conflicts, contradictions. We may not even be living 24 hours in a balanced, sensible way. There is excess somewhere, there is negligence somewhere else, there is overdoing somewhere, there is underdoing somewhere, there is partiality somewhere, there is bias somewhere, there is violence somewhere, there is aggressiveness somewhere, or there is some inexplicable submissiveness somewhere. To somebody, we say yes before even he or she completes her or his request. Yeah, yeah, madam, I'll do that for you, madam. She has not even completed what she, saying what she wants from us. So all this is disorder. All this is disorder where inwardly we ourselves feel the foul smell of disorder. We get a sense of, hey, I am not living the way uh, which is giving me peace with all my talent and impressive position, etc. I myself lack peace. Do I have any right at all to tell my teenager daughter or my grown up son? Do I have any right to advise him? I myself have no peace of mind, and so on. Then there is a certain disorder. Lastly, friends, I am not here to condemn the way you and I live. It's not about condemning, but it's about opening our eyes to certain facts of daily living. Thank you.
Harshad sir.
Yeah, thank you, Swamiji. You have talked about by knowledge, it means certain ideas, ideals, which we learn from religion, from great people, and that knowledge, it creates disorder in our life if we try to follow it and we are not able to follow something like I should not be angry. But if I'm really angry and I say I should not be angry, then that ideal of not being violent, non-violence, it creates conflicts, disorder, and that is what you talked about in your with giving many uh, examples from daily life. Uh, what I like to say is that wisdom is something different than knowledge. One can have knowledge, uh, but if that knowledge is not understood properly, then that knowledge can create disorder. But when we look at whatever we are learning from books, from great people, if we also have the ability to look whether what they are saying is true or false, then it doesn't create that kind of knowledge. It doesn't create disorder, but uh, it can bring some understanding of our own self. Computers are full of knowledge, but they don't have wisdom or love or beauty. All those feelings are missing in computers. So people who are full of knowledge of what great people have said, but if they have not digested it, this knowledge in their daily life, they have not investigated, they have not come to a real understanding, then that knowledge it will create disorder. And it reminds me of a story of one wise man, one pandit. He wanted to have a dialogue, a shastra with Kabir. And this Pandit, he was coming to meet Kabir in a cart, and that cart was full of books. And when he came near Kabir's house, uh, he did not know where exactly the house was, but Kabir's daughter was there, and this Pandit asked Kabir's daughter, "Where is Kabir's house?" And daughter says, "He lives on the top of a hill, and the path is very slippery. How will you go with all this knowledge, with the cart full of books to meet Kabir?" So she was saying that all that knowledge which is gathered from books, which is not of much use if we have really not looked clearly at our own life and have not come to real understanding, love, beauty, peace, all that qualities. So, uh, Krishna ji also said that knowledge, psychological knowledge, which prevents you in looking at a person or a thing very, very clearly. Like as an example, if somebody has insulted me and I felt very hurt by what the other person says, and that hurt got recorded in my brain, and it gets recorded, whether it is a flattery or a criticism, it gets recorded. We have no choice. And then when I see that person again, and if that knowledge of that he had insulted me, if that comes, then I will try to avoid that person. And uh, I will not be able to see clearly whether the person has remained same or he has changed. And this happens even, I have seen in Krishnamurti schools that people who have gone deep into Krishnamurti's teachings, and they both have a high regard for Krishnamurti, but they are not able to meet each other because they have ideas about each other. So once I saw that one administrator was coming on the road and the other administrator was going in the opposite direction. And when one of them saw the other person, he did not want to face that person, so he changed his path. So this happens that Krishnamurti's teachings also may not help if we have really not investigated in our life and found freedom from making these images about people who tell something unpleasant. And also, sometimes people praise you, and that also creates image, and you can't see the person clearly. So, clarity means a mind which is silent, and though the knowledge is there in the background, but it doesn't interfere. And so, when you look at the tree, you look at very fresh, not the knowledge of that tree or the flower. It doesn't come, though the knowledge may be there in the background. And if somebody asks, what tree is that? Then you can say it is a neem tree or a mango tree. But while looking, if the mind is very, very silent, very clear, the knowledge may be there, but it doesn't interfere. So we cannot wipe out knowledge. Knowledge can be knowledge can be very, very helpful also when you want to give a talk, so that you can tell many stories and many incidents from your life and so on. But while looking, listening, learning, knowledge is an obstacle, because if you are saying something and I am reacting, I am not listening fully, and I am thinking something else, that I have a different opinion than what you are talking. And so, if there is that kind of uh, thinking is going on while listening, then it prevents listening. And I think once I gave an example of when Buddha was speaking the first talk after enlightenment to his five friends, and one of them was listening very, very attentively without thinking. And Buddha looked at that person and said, Kondana, you have got it. So there is a possibility exists in human beings, in spite of having knowledge, that knowledge does not interfere, but it can remain in the background. So right now, let me see if I have Krishnaji says that when there is a attention, the knowledge doesn't come. Knowledge doesn't become an obstacle. So he's right that what we are lacking is that kind of attention in which mind is silent and very attentive, very clear, and so it can listen to music, it can listen to somebody talking. Because I think many people who have listened to Krishnamurti, they can't listen to some guru. The guru may be giving a very good talk, but they have this idea that gurus, they exploit their disciples. And so even the Krishnamurti knowledge can lead to uh, obstacle in listening to some guru, and the guru may be very good guru. It depends on how you listen. So this conditioning, it can come from traditional religion, it can come from Krishnamurti also. So what we need is an ability to listen to various people. They may be telling something quite opposite to each other, and they may be great teachers. But am I able to see what is behind the word, what they are talking about? So as long as we have not being silent and looking inward and seeing the thing, not the word, not explanation of the idea, that many people can do, explain what Krishnamurti means by that. But ability to see the thing, not the word, like Krishnamurti said to somebody, the word parrot has blocked you from looking at the thing which flies. So that thing, the parrot, not the word, but that bird, the ability to see without the word, without the symbol, as long as that has not happened in our life, there will be a lot of difficulties, lot of conflicts within oneself, with other people, and so on. So knowledge, there is no problem with the knowledge. When the knowledge becomes understanding or wisdom, then that knowledge can be useful in doing many things. But without understanding, without wisdom, knowledge is like being blind. It doesn't allow us to see things very, very clearly. Okay, I've said enough. Thank you.
Pradeep sir.
Yes, yes. I am audible, I think.
Yes, you are audible.
Thinking. I'm thinking whether it is audible or not. Anyway, so very interesting topic today. Does our philosophical knowledge make us blind? Blind word is very interesting in this. Actually, we always start with some question in our day-to-day life, right from very childhood. We start asking question, and question means the silence is disturbed in one way or the other. Although Harshad Bhai was talking, if you silently see things, actually the question itself disturbs that silence. You are a product of that disturbance. What is so silence is rarely there. It can be as an afterthought or after, it can be used as a silent, let me see it silently. But the question itself is has already disturbed silence. So we start with our questions related to our daily life. Start looking for possible answers in books, guides, gurus, schools, etc. So these words come much later. That this is known as philosophy, this is theosophy, this is theology, this is eschatology, this is logos and So for so many things from the Greek, so we get more into, we get stuck up more with the words, intelligence, intellect. These words we go on using and then trying to find the real import of those words. So our lives are, as human, is very similar that we have seen, and yet different because of individual conditions. So here, those words, we never ask that, let us go philosophically about this question, whether, no naming, nothing, doing no classification. We go for the, whether somebody can answer this question, or myself around it, surround it, and all that. Because Western, there is a difference in Western philosophy, which started with Descartes. I think, therefore I am. So this is the basic difference. So it starts with thinking. So there in West you will find a lot of, they have done a lot of thought experiment, thinking, they have done a lot of it. So, but in East, in us, through us, it is darshan. And now imagine, darshan is so very different than thinking. In fact, darshan, if you can see it, you don't have to think while seeing. This is my, I'm talking through my experiences, my morning, daily seeing things. Seeing reveals most of it. So whether you categorize into this or that, it hardly matters. But what does matter is that can we see? So regarding blindness, naturally, we become blind in certain ways because of our diversions. You see, you can't have everything at the time. You can never have this blindness, if you call blindness. This is a natural phenomenon in us, and this happens frequently. Otherwise, you'll be mad. So that then knowledge as words and images is same, almost in East and West both. We also have number of symbols, totems, number of images, number of words, full of words. So it is, we are caught up. We are caught up in this network of words and images, thinking that something good will come out of it. So seeing solves most of the problems. What matters is not philosophy or this or that or that. What matters is my understanding of life, which is changing, you see, beautifully changing every day. So seeing is important. That's why Krishnamurti very much emphasized, can you see it and can you listen to it? These two things, whether in Zen or Tao or whatever you may call any those, read anyone, but these two things, if they are there in us naturally or through understanding, that looking, watching, seeing reveals everything. So this is all what I wanted to share with friends. Let us not go defining and discussing words. We have to see our life as such daily, because it is hardly repeatable. Even my own my own life changes so fast every day, moment by moment, that there is no chance of, if you go on naming and knowledge. Harshad Bhai has already talked about what knowledge beats, what knowledge, which type of thing can, if your diversion is there, so naturally that time you are blind. Any type, any type. So that blindness immediately if I'm interested in 10 things simultaneously, getting this, that, greedy. So naturally, my blindness is something very difficult to get healed. So this is all what I have to. Thank you very much. Thank you, sir.
Dinesh Waghmare.
Are you able to hear me, sir?
Yes, sir.
It is a very typical topic today we have, and difficult to understand also. And also we have to see whether how much it is practicable or practical. Why I'm saying so? Because what JK says, JK says that order is when me is not. First of all, let us understand what is order as per JK. And then we will see what the philosophical knowledge makes, whether it makes us blind or not. Swamiji has already put his views, and Harshad Bhai has already contradicted some of the points and given his views on those. So definitely here individuality is coming into the picture, and let us understand what JK has to say. JK, what I have studied, has also not given any clear understanding on this. But what he says, order is when me is not. Me comes to an end when it sees for itself that it must end. The seeing is the light of understanding. Order can be there by watchfulness throughout the day, and then before sleeping, by putting everything that has been done during the day in order. You have collected or you have done so many things in a day which needs to be put in order so that you can do it in the night. That's what he says. Disorderly means contradiction, confusion, giving importance to one thing in opposition to the other things. All these points Swamiji has already said. So I am not repeating it. I am going ahead. If you conform to a pattern inwardly or outwardly, you are in disorder. That is also, he says. The art means to put things in their proper place. How you can get the order? If you keep the things in proper place, means right thinking. He has also given a pointer that right thinking, if you do, hello, any problem?
No, continue.
If you the art means to put things in their proper place. You put your things in proper place, then there will be order. That's what he says. And for that you have to understand the whole structure of thought and mind and all that, what we have discussed earlier also. If one wants to live in order and therefore in harmony, then negate disorder, and it is order. It becomes order. Order is inherently in human beings, and it is the thought that brings disorder. So what he says, thought brings disorder, basically. Now this is a very vast statement, or because then you have to negate the entire thought. Then only you can get the order. Then he says, in freedom there is order. So if you are having freedom, it means you are already in order. So here also individuality comes into picture, by which thing the individual gets the freedom. That also we have to see. Because here we are considering the outside also, outer world also, and inner world also. So suppose one wants to become an engineer and he is forced to go in the medical field, then he will find too much pressure, and then he will lose his freedom. So he has to see what we say in JK's teaching. They say that there should be a flowering. Now you say flowering or blooming or whatever the word you use, but it should be as per your inner traits and as per your inner parameters, psychological parameters. If you properly do justice with them, then you can have order. That's what my views are. Here again, my views, I will repeat. Here again, individuality comes in picture. Since the balance is to be maintained against the outer stimulus, it is difficult to remain in order. Most of the time, if we see, the disorder is coming from the outside or outside pressures, and you have to tackle these situations. So this situation may not be in your favor all the time. So it is difficult to remain in order. Ego is made up of past memories, and these are required for the technological purpose mainly. Okay, let us say it is required for the technological purpose. Then that is 60-70% of the content of mind. So daily one will be facing disorder, and daily he has to clean up the cache or trash deposited in the mind. So remain in order for a common man is difficult, as one loses freedom because of society pressures. If you are a monk, these things are little bit easy. But if he also has to face the disorder. So JK says right thinking should be there. So what JK says, if your thinking is right, you have understood the structure of thought, then probably you may drop the things which are not necessary. You may see how related you are with the issue, and then you can drop the things. We read in newspaper, as Swamiji was saying, there are so many things going on in Myanmar or in say Iran or say Ukraine. You have to drop the things which are not related to you immediately, because you don't have to play any role in that. So if you don't have to play any role in that, and if you think on that those lines, then there will be a problem. So you should be in a position to drop those things immediately. As far as philosophical knowledge is concerned, now it is the second part. Harshad Bhai has already explained that knowledge is not that wrong or that non-useful. But my views are also same. I think it makes one blind, then it means he has not understood the philosophical knowledge fully. Actually, one has to see that there is a philosophy, then there is a ideology, and then there is a implementation. In Hindu tradition, we said we don't say philosophy, but there is darshan, which Vermaji has also pointed out. So this darshan means what? You have got the philosophy, then you have got the ideology, means how to do the do's and don'ts related to that philosophy, how you can reach to that point, and then you have to implement it. As simple as that. So if you see any your original book on this any of the tradition, then they explain clearly the first in first few lines only that it is for whom, who is the patra for this book, and what will be the result after reading this book and following this book. So it is very clear. But what happens, normally people read only the books translated by some other people who may not have that total knowledge about that thing. So this happens. So there are three things, as we said: philosophy, then ideology, and then implementation. So unless he goes up to the implementation, he cannot understand the whole subject. So in our tradition, there is no philosophy, but there is darshan. Means you can get the experience of the knowledge and go for transformation. It is very clear. No, knowledge, in case of knowledge, as I said earlier, one has to clearly see how he is related to it. There are on Google or there are other sources. There are so much knowledge available. Now, whether you are related to it, Krishnamurti said, how you are related to it. If you are related to it, okay, then you study it and go for the understanding of it. The next step is understanding. But if you are not at all related, why you are entertaining that knowledge as thought in your mind? So that is very interesting. Now, how to live in the world? It is very interesting. In Yoga Vashishta, Vashishta, who is the guru of Rama, what he says to Ram, when Ram asked them how there is a total disorder in the world and how I should move in the such world, then what he advised to him? Antar eko bahir nana. अंतस्त्यागी बहिर्रागी अंतर्बोधो बहिर्जड़ लोके विहर राघव. It means inside with non remain with the non-duality, outer remain with the duality. Inside you remain tyagi. Tyagi means no attachment, no identification, etc. Outside remain ragi, means show your interest in everything. Inside with wisdom, outside like a rock, remain hard or jad like a rock. In this way you can move in the world comfortably. So this is what the Yoga Vashishta says. So I think this is a very tricky subject, and one has to find out what suits him, how he gets the freedom, what makes order in him. In the case of Krishnamurti also, he has clearly said, throw away Krishnamurti and see what happens in your heart and your mind and what is going inside. Go to the source, find out what source demands, and move accordingly. So JK also is clear in this, and he has only given the pointers. Thank you.
Swamiji, do you want to say some last comment or something like?
I just wish to say that I very much appreciate the inputs from Harshadji, Pradeepji, and Dineshji also. I need to leave in
Okay.
2 minutes. So I want to just say before leaving that yes, I fully accept that knowledge has its own place. But knowledge doesn't have to obstruct our perception if it is kept in its right place. For a whole lot of functionality, we need knowledge. When we have knowledge of philosophy or history of or anything, if we have wisdom to deal with it or to use it rightly, then I think it comes handy. Therefore, we need not, I guess, beat knowledge. Philosophical knowledge need not be looked at as a villain or some kind of wicked thing. Just as we possess many skills and talents, we know many languages, we know many places, we know many people. In all that, as I think Dinesh ji made a comment, it's good to know them and put them in the right place. I think he said something that where we have no role to play, we need not go and get stuck in it. So that is the wisdom part. We have no role to play. Nothing is expected of us. Then if we get into some knowledge excessively, it will only drain us our energy. It will cause some imbalance. So I guess in the traditional wisdom of Gita and so on, there is certain emphasis on being duty conscious. What is our duty? We have something to, we owe something somewhere. There we must be spontaneously getting into, where we have actually, as the idiomatic expression goes, there is something which is none of our business. But just out of some excitement, we get so much into that domain, it can cause a lot of imbalance. So I would sum up my submission as knowledge per se is not a problem as long as we have certain alertness, certain wisdom. It seems to be so for me. Thank you.
Thank you, Swamiji. Pradeep ji.
No, I think it's audible now.
Yes. Audible.
One small point I was talking about seeing. So seeing is a very interesting and quite a complicated stuff in our daily life. You see, optical seeing is one thing. We can be blind even with open eyes, absolutely open eyes, light entering into our retina and all that. So we are largely, our seeing is largely governed by our brains. In domestic, like in our day-to-day home life, you see that we are regulated by our habits, ritual habits, daily habits, a particular placement of things, and then choices of this and that. So we are regulated mainly by our habits and about that. So our seeing is dependent largely. You see, you want to see, you see what you want to see invariably, psychologically also. At times, what happens that you place certain things in our daily life, you place certain items, certain boxes, certain this or that at a particular place horizontally. Then if you put it somehow, somebody has put it vertically, then you are not able to see it. It is right in front of you because the dimension has changed. You see, this is my experience. I'm telling you that it is once it becomes vertical, you are not able to see it properly. So seeing is a very, very interesting phenomenon. Likewise, listening also within family life, you will see that some people will never be able to listen to certain people. They have sorts of blinds. They have. You see, so listening and seeing both are mind based basically. But still, once you're out of your likes, dislikes, and choices in the house, satisfied with your breakfast and everything in the morning, everything is over. And once you go out, at least then, because things are changing outside very fast, it is never same. It is never the same. They will never allow you to be habitual to it because it is changing fast. So then it becomes easier to be free from your uh, past images or your likes and dislikes and see the variety available to you free of cost almost all around you. Then you can see things fresh. So this is what I say. So it's optical and this seeing is very, it's a very interesting thing with us. and it does help. And only seeing can reveal the reality, the facts. That also is true. So at times obsessive, you go out, suppose I'm obsessed with birds, bird watching. So at times what happens is that you see those birds when they are not there. Certain thing is giving you a, you see, that image of that bird, the stork, or this or that, a flamingo, or this number of things. Then it is falsely giving you that idea that it is there. Once you go and see it closely as a fact, things are not there. So interesting. Seeing is a very interesting thing, which I enjoy fully, daily. Everything, even body language, everything it tells you so much. Listening to someone, it's gestures and so many. So seeing is a beautiful nature's blessing to all of us. Enjoy it. Thank you, friends. Thank you.
Thank you. Shakti ji.
Yes, my voice is reaching, sir.
Yes, sir. Very clear.
Yeah. Right. You see, Krishnamurti about this disorder, he talks about watching disorder within and realizing that this disorder is not separate from the person who is watching. Concentrate on disorder, but watching disorder. The moment I condemn, the moment I even give the name disorder, through that thought, the watcher enters, and this duality of watcher and watched arises. So when I watch within myself, I can see that there is a watcher and there are the things which are being watched. I have not realized the non-duality of the watcher and watched. But this watching is important. And Dineshji talked about right thinking. That's very interesting because I was reading in commentaries on living. Krishnamurti talks about right thinking. He said right thinking arises from awareness, different from thought. So that I wanted to share. Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Harshad sir.
Yeah, I would say few things like Pradeep ji said, question disturbs silence. I would say that if the question arises from disturbance, it creates more disturbance. But if the question comes from curiosity and that question has a great vitality, then a question like, who am I? Such a question can stop your mind. It can make your mind silent. So it depends on from what state of the mind the question has come. That is one thing. And if the disorder is coming from outside, like somebody saying something unpleasant to me, then if I am able to listen, then and see whether it is true or false, then it doesn't create disorder in me. So disorder has a lot to do because we are not clear about ourselves that image which may have that I am somebody very important person or very intelligent, and somebody says, no, you are not there, and then I argue with that person like that. So it indicates that the disorder is within me. But if there is no, if the disorder coming from outside, but there is an order within to see clearly, then it doesn't create further disorder. And another thing is philosophical knowledge. Like suppose I read in the traditional books that I am not the body, I am not the mind, I am something else. And so when I read something like that, either I say, oh, it is not true, because people already discard and they say that you are nothing, you are body and mind. Apart from body and mind, there is nothing. But if you are open, and then you have to be silent to find the truth, whether are you the body and mind or there is something else. That is one thing. And Pradeep said that the things outside are changing very fast. Same thing when you are in your room, your thoughts are also changing very fast. And if you are curious, you can observe. And then when the mind becomes silent, when you are inside the house, and then you go outside, you also see everything very beautiful. Though it is changing, it doesn't disturb you. It doesn't. You are fascinated by looking how the birds fly or the shape of the cloud is changing and so on. So everything becomes very lively when there is a silent clarity within us. So these are some of the things which I wanted to make some comment. Okay, thank you.
Pradeep ji.
Just one sentence, because I was listening to Harshad Bhai very intently, carefully, that if it starts with curiosity, he says, it will not be. But that curiosity also, it's not that simple curiosity. One curiosity is when I start, I don't know. So I am free from the past that way. But curious to know what is appearing. So that curiosity is innocent, pure curiosity. But most of the time, curiosity has a mixed knowledge. Somebody said about similar things, someone, and that knowledge is there in me with some sort of confidence or similar experience by me. That curiosity will not keep you in silence. It will be already some knowledge has already disturbed that silence. So, as he said, what am I? Who am I? If this question is there, if even if you have answer to this question, which most of the people have, that you are not mind, you are not this, or you are not that, aham, what they say, kalyan, I am that, I am that, I am. So many things. If that is there, so that inquiry, that curiosity is vitiated. You see, because already you are loaded with so many answers to that curiosity, so that the whole vitality of that question, which can give us, which will bring us back to ourselves, is lost. So this, we have to be careful, and that is what meditation is all about. Why I'm thinking, what am I thinking? Right now, I means I, and as an individual. So these things we have to be careful, because we can't led away by what people said about this. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Dinesh ji.
Are you able to hear me?
Yes.
Harshad sir has said that only curiosity is there, then there is no issue. Only curiosity is not the world, right? Today's all students are facing the pressures of the workload. And when I retired, I also, before that, in the last years, I was also facing the same thing. So when you are facing so much pressure from the outside, you have to do this task and you have to manage so many people and get the work done from them, then this is a disorder, isn't it? So you don't want to do that, but you have to do that. So this is also the thing which one has to consider. And not only the curiosity. Curiosity is okay for a monk or for a person who is only after this and he has got only this priority of spirituality. But otherwise, there are so many things. This is the main thing. Another thing, if you are watching a bird or this thing, uh, okay, what you are getting it, what are you are getting from it, gaining from it, that also you have to see. As Harshad sir said, the whole atmosphere becomes live. Means what? Are you going beyond that dimension or what? So can you remain with it, with that dimension? That is very important. If you remain with that dimension, then things may change. But if you just see because Krishnamurti has said to watch the bird and watch this thing, then I don't think there will be any much gain from it or much you may not get that what JK says. So these are the things. Another thing, I think there is already time over, so it's a long thing. So let us
One
discontinue.
last comment from Harshad sir, and then we will close it. If at all
Yeah,
something
I would
is
say
left.
when I talk about curiosity, I mean to look inward to see what is unfolding within my mind, not with a motive, but just seeing. And same kind of seeing can happen when you look at the bird or an animal or a cloud or a star or a human face or colors. So it is very much related. When you are very curious to learn about your own mind, there will be curiosity outside. And it is not about gathering knowledge from all these things. Not the knowledge of oneself, not the knowledge of the things outside, but just looking is something extraordinary beauty around us. But if our mind is chattering, we don't feel it. Otherwise, the smile of a child or a star or the moon and the clouds is wonderful. It can sometimes lead to poems, creativity also, but that is a byproduct, you know. So there is a great beauty in just looking without any purpose, with a silent mind, enjoying everything, you know. So that is what I am saying. And it has to start, I feel, from my own experience, that when you begin very, very curious to see your own thoughts, then curiosity will come also in engineering problem or in physics or mathematics problem. Same, it's the same curiosity. But most people are curious about the outside thing. They are not really looking inward, the quality of their daily life, relationship with people. And so there are scientists, they are very good in their work in engineering or science, but their family life is very bad. So because it's one-sided. What I am saying is looking inward and then expanding it outward, and then you don't find any difference between inward and outward. You can look clearly at your own mind. You can look. So it's very much related. Thank you.
Thanks all for the participation.